Tanjiro continues his battle with the swamp demon. Nezuko escapes her box and rushes the clones. Hesitant at first, Tanjiro finally realizes that his sister can hold her own. He asks her to watch over the humans while he deals with the demon on their terms. He enters the swamp below the street and finds himself completely submerged. Despite his lack of footing, Tanjiro recalls that the water-breathing Form 6 is usable even without solid ground. With one fluid motion, he decimates the two clones, while his sister fights the third above. She's taken by surprise, and when the demon thinks he has an opening, Tanjiro leaps from the swamp below, making sure the demon keeps his hands off Nezuko. Tanjiro questions the demon, but it's terror-stricken the second he mentions the name Kibutsuji. He gives Kazumi the personal effects of the victims he recovered from the swamp and asks him to get the rescued girl home safely before setting off. With barely a moment to breathe, Tanjiro's Kasugai crow shows up and directs him to Tokyo. In Tokyo, the sheer number of people overwhelms Tanjiro, who decides to go somewhere quiet to eat. Just as he's about to dig into a bowl of udon, he detects the scent present the day his family was killed. It leads him to a man with his wife and daughter, Kibutsuji masquerading as a human. While Tanjiro tries to confront him, Kibutsuji turns a passerby into a demon to distract him. Chaos and confusion ensue, and he uses the distraction to make his escape. Tanjiro is left to deal with the newly turned demon, all while processing the shock of coming face to face with his family's killer. The newly turned demon bites his wife before Tanjiro is able to gag him and pin him to the ground. Kibutsuji leaves the commotion, quickening his pace as Tanjiro calls him out. As he struggles, a woman scratches her arm, drawing blood and filling the air with a strong scent that subdues the man. Clearly a demon herself, having just performed blood arts, she introduces herself as a doctor. Meanwhile, Kibutsuji leaves his family to deal with some demon business. He's confronted in an alley and quickly dispatches both assailants, while terrifying a woman. After injecting her with his blood, her body begins to deform, and her head explodes, unable to handle the rapid transformation with that volume of his blood. He summons two of his subordinates and orders them to find the demon slayer wearing Hanafura earrings, becoming enraged as he recalls the demon slayer who nearly killed him wearing the same earrings years before. Tanjiro returns to the udon stand to apologize when he notices the young man who was accompanying the doctor earlier standing off to the side. They follow the young demon through the streets until he walks straight through a solid wall. It turns out that his blood demon arts can create illusions. They step through to find a mansion in the middle of the city hidden from plain sight. The woman introduces herself as Tamayo and her companion Yushido. Apparently, she's the only demon besides Kibutsuji who has successfully created another. Her experiments with his blood may prove useful in reversing its effects, especially in Nezuko's case. She needs more blood samples from demons closest to Kibutsuji, the 12 Kizuki. While they converse, the two demons track them down, discovering the hidden mansion. Tanjiro agrees to collect samples for her in his travels when a tamari suddenly bursts through the wall. A barrage of them destroys the wall. One changes direction mid-air, taking Yushido's head clean off. The woman throwing the tamari notices Tanjiro's Hanafura earrings, while he tries to stop one with his sword, only to find its trajectory shift unexpectedly. She declares they're about to die at the hands of one of the 12 Kizuki. Perfect, just what the doctor ordered. Yushido rants as his head grows back, chewing Tanjiro out for not following the arrows, the invisible ones, of course. After lending Tanjiro his sight via blood demon art, giant red arrows appear out of nowhere, pointing in the direction of the projectiles, allowing Tanjiro to discern their changing trajectories. Nezuko joins the battle, attacking the demon in the tree. Disrupting his hand-eye coordination makes the arrows disappear temporarily. Tanjiro manages to lop the woman's arms off, though she regenerates incredibly fast. They decide to switch targets. Tanjiro sees the opening thread as he closes in, but it snaps as an arrow appears beneath his feet, sending him flying. Nezuko attempts to kick a tamari, but loses her footing. Tamayo rushes to her aid and gives her a serum to speed up her slow regeneration. Tanjiro finds the arrows aren't affected by his sword, but if he follows their direction with his body, he can get rid of them faster, decreasing the relative velocity. Combining this with his water-breathing forms garners him one clean shot to lop off the demon's head. He never saw it coming. He goes all out in a last-ditch effort to kill Tanjiro, who tries as many forms as possible to mitigate the damage. Though effective, he cracks a rib and breaks a leg, leaving him exhausted with one demon still alive. He crawls towards them with the hilt of his katana between his teeth. Nezuko figures out how to keep her feet attached to her legs and sends the tamari back at their pitcher, which only frustrates her further. But this creates a perfect opportunity for the doctor to get inside her head. She uses her blood demon art to manipulate her into speaking Kibutsuji's name, activating the cursed blood in her veins, which kills her from the inside. Upon inspection, it turns out that neither was one of the 12. They don't have the definitive markings on their eyes. Tanjiro hears the demon's dying thoughts and puts a tamari near her for comfort, feeling sorry for the demon in the end, especially considering Kibutsuji's cruelty. Afterwards, Nezuko now sees their new companions as family, despite Urokodaki's hypnotics. Tamayo offers to take her with them, arguing that it would probably be safer for her, but Nezuko refuses to leave her brother's side. On the way to their next mission, they run into another demon slayer. He interrupts the demon slayer's attempt to persuade a woman to marry him. The two recognize each other as fellow survivors of final selection, but Tanjiro initially denies knowing him. Eventually, he learns Zenitsu's name and wonders why he's so scared. Apparently, he's terrified at dying at the hands of a demon, which he feels is inevitable at this point. When they arrive at the specified location, they encounter two frightened siblings who claim that a monster kidnapped their older brother. They were attacked the night before and followed the blood trail to the mansion in the woods. Suddenly, a bloodied and beaten man flies out of the mansion's window. Tanjiro rushes to his aid, but the man dies of his injuries moments later. The ominous tapping sound that erupts from the mansion steals his attention and hardens his resolve. Tanjiro leaves Nezuko's box in the children's care and enters the mansion with Zenitsu. When he asks if he will protect him, the last thing Zenitsu wants to hear is that he'll have to fend for himself due to Tanjiro's previous injuries. Now he's even more afraid of dying at the hands of a demon. While trying to calm Zenitsu down, they're interrupted by the children entering the mansion, who were scared by the noises coming from the box. Despite Tanjiro's warnings, they insist on sticking with the demon slayers, though the group quickly becomes separated. Zenitsu tries to convince the boy that's still with him that they should leave, dragging him along as he looks for a way out. They run into an unknown swordsman wearing a boar mask, which only frightens Zenitsu even more. Tanjiro and the girl see a demon walk past the room. Drums protrude from its body, which solves the mystery surrounding the ominous rhythmic sound. Tanjiro lunges, sword in hand, but before his blade connects, the demon hits a drum, and the room begins to spin, literally. The boardsman appears, busting through the wall. Excited, he exclaims that the demon's going to fall by his hand. The boar-masked stranger launches his attack. The demon simply strikes the Tsuzumi, causing the room to flip upside down and throwing the little girl onto the ceiling. Tanjiro instructs her to hold on to the furniture, while Boar Mask uses him as a springboard, irritating him further. The demon taps the drum twice, causing the room to spin back right side up, and the girl lands on the floor, only to be stepped on by Boar Mask, who seems to be the only one enjoying the rotating rooms. Tanjiro tosses him away, angry about him harming the girl. Impressed by this feat, Boar Mask challenges Tanjiro to a fight, ignoring the threat of the demon altogether. Suddenly, the demon slayers find themselves in different parts of the mansion. Tanjiro picks up the scent of blood, unlike any that he's ever smelled before. It leads him to find the kid's older brother, who apparently has a special type of blood that makes demons stronger by several magnitudes. Elsewhere, Zenitsu and the boy walk through dark hallways when a demon suddenly attacks them. Zenitsu is too scared to fight and faints, but in his unconscious state, he slices through the demon's tongue, somehow suddenly capable and courageous. He uses thunder breathing first form without even opening his eyes to save the boy's life. only to come to and believe that the boy must have done something to defeat the demon. The drum demon mutters something about wanting to devour someone with Marechi blood, revealing that he was once lower rank 6 of the 12 Kizuki. Tanjiro leaves the children with the drum that the older brother found and goes to face the demon. He remembers his training, which gives him the confidence to push through his injuries. He detects a mold-like smell whenever the demon uses his claw attack, allowing him to anticipate and avoid the slashes. This gives Tanjiro an opening to use total concentration water breathing, 9th form, splashing water flow, turbulent, to deal a devastating blow. After collecting a blood sample from the drum demon, Tanjiro goes back to the brother and sister, and they make their way to find the exit. Tanjiro picks up the scent of blood, and they hurry outside to find Zenitsu clutching Nezuko's box while taking a beating from the boar-masked kid. He sensed a demon inside the box and is angry that he won't allow him to kill it. Zenitsu knew all along that there was a demon in the box due to his amazing hearing ability. But if Tanjiro says the box is more important than his life, it doesn't matter what's inside. Zenitsu commits to protecting it. Upon arriving at the scene, Tanjiro is furious, immediately attacking the kid with the boar mask. He tries to stop the rogue slayer by breaking his ribs, despite the taboo against demon slayers harming one another. Fighting like an animal, the slayer forces Tanjiro to retaliate. Eventually, he headbutts him, causing the boar mask to fall off and reveal a feminine and delicate face, despite the strong and muscular body. The slayer introduces himself as Inosuke, who promptly loses consciousness. He wakes up a while later to find the others burying the dead near the mansion. Tanjiro's Kasugai crow then directs them to descend the mountain. Bidding the siblings farewell, the three set off. They arrive at a house bearing a Wisteria family crest, and an elderly woman helps them rest and recover. Inosuke informs them that the only reason he entered the final selection was to test his abilities on demons, and Zenitsu asks Tanjiro about his reason for carrying a demon. As Nezuko suddenly exits the box herself, Zenitsu becomes infuriated with Tanjiro for having a girl with him all this time. Zenitsu is smitten by Nezuko's beauty and chases her around, much to Tanjiro's annoyance. Inosuke sits outside, listening to them, while the woman caring for them, Hisa, appears next to him and gives him clean clothes to wear while she washes his. The three are given a clean bill of health by a doctor, and shortly afterwards, Tanjiro's Kasugai crow informs them of their mission. They must head north-northeast to Mount Natagumo. Hisa sees them off by striking a kiribi flint, telling them to live their lives with immense pride and wishing them luck in battle. The three reach Mount Natagumo, and Tanjiro detects a scent and runs off with the others in tow. They find an injured demon slayer begging for help, but he's suddenly pulled through the air back into the forest. Inosuke and Tanjiro rush after him, finding the forest covered in spiderwebs, annoying the former. Zenitsu is, of course, scared and hangs back. They find the demon slayer, who informs them that he and 10 others entered the forest. Soon after, one of them drew his sword and slashed another in the throat. To his horror, he watched his fellow corps members dismember one another, not remembering that they were brethren, as if they were puppets. An exhausted Kasugai crow informs a man in a shrine about the massacre. 2 Hashida, Giyu Tomioka and Shinobu, are sent to investigate. Meanwhile, Zenitsu sits on the road, feeling left behind by Tanjiro and Inosuke, but he's motivated to join them in the forest after remembering that Nezuko is with them. As Tanjiro, Inosuke, and the surviving demon slayer explore the mountain, they hear a strange rattling sound and see the corpses of dead demon slayers walking towards them. They realize that the corpses are being controlled by a demon manipulating the spiderwebs attached to them. Tanjiro and Inosuke tried to free them by cutting the threads, but they keep reattaching. A demon presents himself, casually strolling along threads of web among the treetops. He insists that they will not be permitted to disturb their family and departs as casually as he arrived. Inosuke uses his beast-breathing technique to locate the demon controlling the threads and finds a pale demon woman sitting on a boulder in the distance. Zenitsu enters the forest in search of Nezuko, but is exhausted after running hard into the woods. The surviving demon slayer stays behind to hold off the puppets while Inosuke and Tanjiro go after the puppet master. The demon woman is startled by a voice from behind calling her mother. The demon from earlier, Rui, asks if she will be able to kill them. Terrified, Mother initially doesn't answer Rui, but then claims that she will protect him, begging Rui not to tell Father. A living, controlled girl yells for Tanjiro to run and swings her blade at incredible speed. The threads on her body contort her arms back, breaking them at the joints, and she screams in pain, but is forced to continue her attack. Tanjiro has an idea and lures the controlled girl by running away, forcing her to chase him. He spins back around, grabs her in his arms, and uses his enhanced strength to fling her high into the branches, leaving her dangling in the air and no longer a threat. Inosuke becomes excited and wants to copy his move. He lures another demon slayer into running after him and throws him into the branches. Unable to do much with the tangled threads, Mother deems the controlled demon slayers useless and snaps their necks, to Tanjiro's horror. Tanjiro detects the sense of two demons and senses something in the distance. They encounter a giant headless demon doll controlled by the threads and weaponized with blades as its arms. Inosuke goes in to attack, but forgets about the spiders. Tanjiro jumps in front of him and blocks the puppet's attack. He then launches Inosuke, who cuts off the arms while he takes care of the legs. Inosuke lands the final blow and then launches Tanjiro at the puppeteer just to prove he's on the same level. When Tanjiro notices the demon's fear, he uses a painless strike to decapitate her. Before she disappears, she warns him that a member of the 12 Kizuki is on the mountain. Zenitsu is still searching the forest for Nezuko. As he searches, he's pricked by something and turns around to see a demon spider with a face. In his panicked state, he flees and runs into another spider demon who tells him that he has already lost. He realizes that he's been poisoned and is slowly turning into a spider himself. He seeks refuge in a tree and has a flashback to his training days. He took refuge in a tree once back then too, and was struck by lightning, turning his hair blonde and caused his unconscious state to turn into a sort of flow state. He's only able to use the first thunder breathing technique, but was told that if he masters it, it can be incredibly powerful. In the present, in the forest, in the tree, and unable to handle his present predicament, Zenitsu passes out, only to enter his bizarre warrior fugue state. He uses thunder breathing, first form, surrounded by crackling energy, and beheads the spider demon before collapsing due to the poison's effects. He hears his master's voice telling him not to give up and repurposes his breathing technique to slow the poison's spread. Meanwhile, Tanjiro and Inosuke spot another demon, but it turns out to be a trap. When Inosuke goes to attack, a giant spider-headed demon targets him from above. The two Hashira arrive on the mountain to search for demons and fellow slayers, while Tanjiro and Inosuke face off against Father. Despite their best efforts, both of them are having a hard time cutting through his thick skin. Tanjiro decides to pin the demon under a tree he cuts down, but when he moves in to cut off its head, the demon picks up the log and sends him flying. Tanjiro tells Inosuke not to die as he's launched across the forest. Zenitsu manages to hold on long enough for one of the Hashira to find him. Tanjiro lands. He sees the small demon from before scolding his sister. Tanjiro picks up on the sense of fear and hate, telling them they have no true bond. Suddenly, another demon slayer appears, but is immediately cut to pieces by a spiderweb attack he didn't see coming. Inosuke barely holds on as he faces off with Father. Finding a second wind, he's finally able to cut off one of its hands by hammering one blade with the other. The small demon promises to kill Tanjiro slowly for denouncing his family fantasy. Meanwhile, the giant spider-headed demon sheds its skin, becoming even more powerful. Remembering his ally's words, Inosuke refuses to die, even though he's thrown around like he's nothing, and his swords break on the demon's new exoskeleton. Suddenly, the other Hashira rank catches up. and defeats the demon in a single strike. The forest air clears a bit, and Tanjiro is able to sniff out the web attacks. He makes his move, but it's useless. His Nichirin sword breaks, severed as it makes contact with one of the demon's webs. Thank you for sticking until the end. Subscribe for more videos like this.